Hello there, Exiles. Halo here, along with Seek, and we're here to do an update video to our Lake of Kalandra League start, talk a bit about the game, and do a quick recap of how things went for us. Reddit's a dumpster fire, some of the changes are pretty crazy, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but we'll start with a league start of how things went for us as we started in Lake of Kalandra League.
Yeah, I mean, all things considered, the builds turned out pretty well. Throughout the leveling, throughout mapping, and throughout the end game that we somehow managed to get to.
Yeah, it was.
Throughout, yeah,
Oh, so many people were complaining about like the Arc Nemesis modifiers and stuff being so much harder, but it felt a little bit off, but we didn't hardly notice just because of how crazy the
yeah,
setup is.
we were definitely a little bit privileged there. Um,
Our leveling was pretty crangled. We didn't have a lot of time to practice, but we still did our Act 10 Katava sub 5 hours. Would have liked it to be closer to 4, but still a lot better than previous leagues, and some of the practice paid off at least. The one or two leveling runs we did. The league mechanic was pretty garbage. It was terrible, unrewarding. We did it a couple times and it was just completely not worth doing. It felt really
yeah,
bad.
and I mean, it was especially later on in maps. I we considered briefly the idea of like clicking on the tablet to not actually running the tablet, but just or not running the lake, but completing the tablets to itemize and sell them. And even something with that low time investment, it just didn't feel worth it to do something as simple as spend 10 seconds at a tablet
Yeah,
in every map. It was
the rewards were.
just an utter waste, it felt like.
Yeah, like the things that put like strong boxes or shrines, those ones didn't even have chests. Like they didn't have like the modifiers to quant that maps do. I don't know, it just felt really
Yeah.
bad. There wasn't anything too
Like
exciting.
there were definitely some interesting tiles for sure. But overall, yeah, I mean, there were some interesting tiles. It was kind of fun, but overall, it was like the high end of the rewards were pretty mediocre, and the low end of the rewards were just non-existent.
Yeah, just on the
There's so
floor.
many times, the vast majority of the time, you're gonna run, multiple tiles without picking up a single item, and that just
Yeah, it just sucks for
yeah,
how long it takes to set up. We progressed faster than in previous leagues, going through maps and stuff. We did a fair amount of practice that way, um, we could have done better, but it was still a lot better than we'd done in the past. So we were pretty happy at that point. And we transitioned into our farming setups, but it was way harder than it should have been. The economy was pretty fucked this league. Like,
absolutely. It was like, man, between I mean, the main thing is that like normal uniques were massively more expensive. Normal being like non-boss drops or non, you know, div card. I mean, even some of the ones, even a lot of the uniques that had div cards were pretty
crazy.
inflated.
Like
But yeah,
in the POBs, like the 200C budget on the carry and then the 500C on the Orabot, we expected, like based on previous leagues, that we would be able to put those versions together for maybe half, if that. Like half of that cost, maybe a little bit more because we were experienced with itemization. And in previous leagues, that would have been possible. But this league, those same setups, not only were they massively nerfed because all the changes in 3.19, but they were like 5, 6, 7, 8 times as expensive. And it's
yeah, it was
it's hard to
it was
say.
pretty crangled. And
It,
like we just, the Orabot especially being composed entirely of unique items, it felt pretty bad. Like especially, last league, for instance, on that version of the Orabot, um, we didn't have so many challenges to surmount. Had more reservation, we had Covenant and stuff. So that build didn't have to fit in quite as many uniques or quite as many random items. The socket colors also there it
Oh, the
wasn't
socket
even
color
entirely
changes.
unique items that made the builds more expensive. The Orabot, for instance, has, so many off colors it has to get on
Non-type
all
to type
the
harvest
dexterity
crafts.
bases.
Yeah, you could spend like 20C and do non-type to type, and then get four off colors on an item really cheaply. But you just can't do that
Right.
anymore.
Yeah. And now it ended up being like, 20% of the price of the mid investment Orbot was just doing jeweler's orb uh coloring and, just buying chromatics. It was pretty crazy.
And
Chromatics were especially expensive,
right,
because
they're usually like
what
12
can you
to a
do without
chaos.
harvest?
Yeah, but now they're all like 5 or
Yeah,
6 like day
right?
two.
Like the number that's in my head is like 14 to a chaos, I remember from a league or two ago. In this league, they were at 6 or 7 to a chaos.
And for all of that, we still were extremely strong. We transitioned, we did our early mapping atlas tree. We pushed, sold some T16 maps, some of the drops from that. It took a little longer to get online than we would have liked, but we transitioned into a rudimentary bossing version, and we did, I don't know, probably 15, 20 Elder Slayer rotations, you think?
Mm,
Maybe like
a little
10,
closer to 15, but
yeah,
yeah,
probably like
yeah,
15.
15 Elder Slayer rotations into
Yeah, like
15 Seeresses.
and that went well. We made a fair amount of currency. We were able to transition into our feared version, and then we did probably 20 something
Yeah,
feareds. But the economy, it was just it felt terrible. Like the boss drops themselves weren't really selling, and prices were crangled because it felt like a lot of people didn't have the currency to buy the boss drops like they would in previous leagues. It the economy
yeah,
feels pretty dead. Day two, three, four. It kind of feels like it does a month or two into the league, where drops aren't really worth as much. They're not selling, just because people, specifically boss drops.
yeah. Like normal uniques, the ones we need for our build were a lot more expensive. The boss drops, the ones we generated, they just had such a hard time selling.
You know,
Like
and
nobody ever had the money to pay for well-rolled ones, Nobody had any money to afford these upgrades. They had to prioritize more basic ones.
we did make like a mirror and some change. Not all doom and gloom here, but after doing that, I feel kind of unmotivated to keep playing the league. The days onward. We were gonna try to farm like 4 or 5 mirrors, but it just doesn't feel particularly worth doing it at
Yeah.
this point.
Especially because the changes were so ubiquitously, nerfs compared to last league and because I mean before the league started after the manifesto, there were a lot of worries. I myself at least had a lot of worries that the league would be the same as last league but worse, you know? Um and the only thing that sort of changed our expectations a little bit were the unique reworks. I mean, covenant changes aside,
Feels bad.
there would hopefully be enough that actually maybe enabled a new build or something like that. And we have yet to see. I'm sure some new builds will come out. But typically you first few days you're very motivated to push currency to get your build to a certain point, or perhaps to acquire currency to to make a second build. In this league, it felt more that like the currency making was a personal goal for ourselves. We want to make a mirror or two by X
Yeah,
day, but it's not the same because what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with that currency ultimately? Play the same build as last league that just feels worse, is less, less interesting to craft
it's
for, perhaps doesn't function. It's
it's pretty telling that like almost every league, every expansion, there's always something cool or exciting, like a new twist or new items or something, and you'll see like showcases that people are like, oh, look at this cool thing I got, and there's hardly any of that. The amulet and rings from Kalandra crafting, um, there's not a lot of them. I think it's just because there's not a lot of people running the mechanic because of how unrewarding it is. But even still, it's limited to like base tier mods. Like you can't have influenced mods
yeah.
or a lot of other things. So I don't know.
Like
There's
for league mechanic aside, for that to be, because the thing about the league mechanic is it drops some currency, it has some essences or whatever. The only new interesting thing it added to the game wasn't even that new. It was rings that have doubled stats on certain stats.
yeah,
Like that was aside from the unique changes, which we have yet to see if they're gonna enable a ton of new builds. There are definitely some that are getting used, but it's just, having more stats on a ring
it
isn't
doesn't.
really gonna be something build enabling.
Yeah, it's not
It's not gonna
revolutionary particularly. Though I will say temp curse with like reducing the effective curses on you. That like Captain Lance posted a video that looks really cool. But
that's
there's
the yeah, I saw that. That with the shield, I had no idea the shield gave 20% reduced damage. It was definitely
yeah
a really
the
cool use.
the what do you call it? The harvest changes feel awful.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. We, we
Yeah,
we we were going to try to AFK kill a 100, 300% quant feared and a one link tempest shield. It's still doable, but like we sat down, we lined up. We're gonna make this item this way. Here's how we're gonna do it. Here's how we're gonna make it. And I don't know. Those methods are gone now. You could still do it, but it's less deterministic. It's more of an RNG
yeah,
fest at every single stage, and it just doesn't seem worth doing. At least not this league. Maybe perhaps later. With how much less profitable everything feels, like especially farming out the currency for it, just I don't know, feels more like a chore than an exciting goal. Um, Now, I will say there are hundreds of people playing both of our builds, which is super cool. Like running into all of you guys playing on ladder, trading in game, stopping by the Twitch stream. It is kind of mind blowing how many people are playing our setup and how many people are having a good time doing it. So I know we're kind of doom and gloom, but that has been super awesome. Like the content creation side of things has been fantastic. Um,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a way, like our build, we succeeded. We flew through the content. We made a lot of currency, but wise, this league was definitely hindered by the changes, and to a pretty large extent, streaming and making these guides saved our enjoyment to the
yeah,
league starts
ab-
for
a-
ourselves. It was
absolutely.
it was a blast.
This league is the most fun I have ever had planning the characters and doing all the preparation and like making the guides and stuff that I've ever had, and the least fun I've had with the actual gameplay itself. Now, like Zeke said, the chatting with everyone on the Twitch stream and the Discord and like the community aspect and seeing all the people running into people playing the guides, that really saved the experience for us. It was so much fun.
Yeah,
We were looking through PoE Ninja the other day, and there's at least 600-700 people playing our builds on ladder that we can see, and that's only looking through some of the more identifiable things. There's probably closer to 1,000 total. Um,
and yeah, and only characters who are level 91 plus,
yeah, we
which many people
probably
started later, didn't progress quite as fast.
I always want to understate because you don't want to be arrogant. It's like, oh, our build had this effect on the economy and like think you're more important than you are. But we
Yeah,
probably had a pretty big effect on the economy, like both on the cost of our build's uniques and on the supply of drops from the feared. There were a lot of people in the Discord or in the Twitch chat that were like, "Hey, I'm doing this juicy content for the first time. We're playing this duo setup, and it's a breeze. It's so cool." And that was so awesome to see. And it's cool to have like sort of an effect on the game itself. I
yeah,
wouldn't have thought
and
it would
like
be this popular.
to have people mention it to us, to see it on PoE Ninja Ladder, and to see it in game. That was my favorite part, is just running into, buying an item from someone, and they're like a low life Inquisitor
With
with Ghost Shroud spec, and not regenning their HP, and they're
right,
in maybe they're in a party with an Orabot, or it
they're
was just so cool how many people took our builds and blasted through content and were selling us like top end items
it
when
was
buying top end items.
it was pretty sick. It's still kind of mind blowing how many people were playing our
Yeah,
setup.
I remember like buying. It was I once went to buy some flawless Chiulas for feared rotations, and I ended up with at the same moment Nicholas, another person playing our builds, was buying. He was also buying flawless Chiulas. So many interactions like that were.
Yeah, pretty awesome. Um, I think things will be fine in the long run for the game. I'm not quite as doomer long term speaking. There's a lot of things that have been changed for the better, and I expect GGG will do a damage control, shit is on fire, fix it patch in a week or so that changes some stuff. Maybe I'm being a little optimistic, but I think it'll be likely. We'll be back for the next league either way. The game is still love the game, just not particularly motivated to keep playing in this league. And I do want to make a either flame dash or frost blink like spell totem build, just because I want to see spell totems blinking around and moving, and I think that would look kind of hilarious. So maybe we'll do that later in the league and make a video about it. Um,
And we've also been considering putting together a duo setup that isn't specifically Orbot plus carry, like the idea being two normal self-sufficient builds that you could put together, but making a few tweaks that make them synergize really well.
yeah, the idea is, can you make two solo capable characters that are meant to play together, and instead of being like 30 times more powerful like an Orabot, be like 4 or 5 times as powerful as like a solo character, but still be completely self-sufficient and let both people still kill things, you know. We'll do a lot of experimenting and testing just to see how viable that is, and it'd be cool to have something like that for next league that's not just Orabot specific, you know. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, like on stream and on the videos here. Tell us how your league start went in the comments. If you have any questions, I'm going to spend a good while trying to answer questions in Discord in the comments now that we're not pushing content as hard. So yeah, hopefully the rest of your league start goes well for you, and see you guys next league or in future content, whatever that may be.